That was a great introduction and setup to the topic. So next up, we are lucky to hear from Kerry. He has a number of roles in this space. He is the Senior Counsel at Sidley, Austin. He is a Distinguished Visiting Fellow in Governance Studies and the Center for Technology Innovation at the Brookings Institute, and a visiting scholar with the MIT Media Lab. Cam, welcome. He's going to be talking to us about regulating security and privacy in a networked world.
Lauren, thank you very much, and good afternoon. Slides, okay, where's my clicker? Okay, wonderful, thank you. So this advances. Okay. Yes, I have power. Thank you very much. Okay, toda raba. So again, thank you. It's good to be here. At the Microsoft Development Conference last month, Satya Nadella spoke about the world as a computer. That's a concept that is exciting in some ways and also frightening. Think about a single computer with all of the world's knowledge. One computer with billions of liabilities. So I'm here to talk about who regulates that computer and how. Let's look a little bit at the scale of that issue. The world as a computer is possible because we live in a networked world. Futurists and business forecasters can argue about how many tens of billions of devices are going to be connected to these networks. We've heard some of those predictions today, but the order of magnitude is unmistakable. And all of these devices are connected by networks around the world that are expanding in number and in bandwidth. So the result is that we are in the midst of an information big bang. The Moore's law, the doubling of computing power every 18 to 24 months may be reaching the point of diminishing returns, we have all of those billions of devices, increases in storage capacity, especially with cloud computing, and more powerful software. Today, you can download open source machine learning routines from GitHub. So the effect of this explosion is to put data on an exabyte scale. What we're seeing is the effect of Metcalfe's law, network effects. The principle that the value of a network is a function of the number of nodes in the network. As we increase the network, as we increase all of that data, all of that connectivity, we are now on an exabyte scale. That's, today about 5 exabytes every day, a number followed by 30 zeros every single day, and likely to accelerate as we move forward. That is the power of network effects. So this has, as you've heard from Lauren, as we've heard from many speakers today, great possibilities for humanity and enormous challenges for privacy and security, not the least. Those don't need to be incompatible. We need to make them work together. but underscoring what Yigal Una described this morning, the 3 V's of big data, volume, velocity, and variety, multiply the attack surfaces and vectors, and they magnify the power and the granularity of data for evil as well as for good. Addressing these challenges cannot be just a sovereign state response. Governments need to recognize their limited capability, their limited agility in this arena. And one government alone has limited effect in this global environment. The infrastructure around the world that operates on the same systems, same software, same hardware, mostly developed and deployed by the private sector. So the challenges transcend borders, they transcend jurisdictions, and they are the same everywhere. The same array of technical exploits and vulnerabilities, the same malicious code, the same transnational cyber criminals, and the same nation-state actors. And we all stand to reap the benefits together. The multiplier of network effects can expand human knowledge and economic growth, whether it's the opportunity for Israeli cybersecurity companies to come to my home city of Boston, or the ability of a farmer in Botswana to use precision agriculture and to have access to markets around the world. So these transnational challenges demand transnational responses. As with climate, as with disease and migration, we need to think globally, holistically, and collaboratively, about a technically and politically complex environment of information and communications networks. This means, first of all, international cooperation and convergence. It also means regulating through collaboration among like-minded governments, industry, civil society, academia, other stakeholders, rather than top-down solutions. That goes against the natural tendency of governments, especially when it comes to things touching on national security. But it's also necessary so that the responses can be adaptive. Just like the technologies and like the threats, we need to open the architecture of regulation. Many of you are probably familiar with the cybersecurity framework of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the counterpart of the Standards Institution of Israel next to this campus. Some of you may have contributed to its development. I hold the NIST framework out as a successful example of a collaborative technology policy. It's the product of wide consultation, of collaboration, of bottoms-up consensus, rather than government prescription. It's nominally about critical infrastructure, but it has proved to be adaptable to a wide variety of organizations and sectors. It avoids any specific prescriptions or specifications or one-size-fits-all approach or checklist. Instead, it takes and organizes a set of existing international standards and guidelines and practices into a structure that organizations can use to assess their cybersecurity risk, their objectives, their processes, and continuously improve their resiliency. It's a living document that just came out in its version 1.1. I was involved in its creation development when I was the General Counsel, and for a while acting Secretary at the Department of Commerce. The NIST framework has succeeded beyond anything that I thought during that development. Now, I don't mean that self-regulation alone is always enough. In leading the Obama administration's work on consumer privacy and its proposal of a consumer privacy bill of rights, I led the drafting of legislation to make that law. Now, in the United States, we have some strong laws on privacy and security, but we have some gaps. The great American TV comedian Lucille Ball has a wonderful bit where she goes to work on an assembly line. Check it out on YouTube. She goes to work wrapping candies. The assembly line keeps going faster and faster. They're falling further and further behind. And she turns to her friend, her sidekick, and says, "I think we're playing a losing game." That's where we are with privacy in America today, where we are with security, and it's true in the world today. Technology is moving faster and faster, and we are falling further and further behind, and it's a losing game. So the Privacy Bill of Rights was intended to change the rules of the game by framing some basic principles based on the Fair Information Practice principles that Lawrence Smith described, and making them legally enforceable. The framing didn't try to prescribe exactly how those principles should apply in particular contexts. The idea was to move away from static privacy notices, from consent forms and fixed use limitations, less focused on collection and on process, and more on how people are protected in the ways that the data is used and handled. Outcomes, not processes, a toolbox, not a checklist. So, this conference, I think, presents opportunities to build on that approach. It's a remarkable demonstration of the role that Israel has to play in the global discussion of privacy and security. For Israel, security has been existential for 70 years. So it's been ahead of the curve on cybersecurity and its culture of innovation, its thriving high-tech sector, its outsized role, as we've heard today, brings so much to the table on cybersecurity. On privacy, as a common law country, like the US, with a comprehensive privacy law that's recognized as adequate by the EU, Israel can be a bridge between America and the European Union. It's appropriate that Israel's Privacy Protection Authority includes a director of innovation. And as Israel adopts a revised law, it has the opportunity not simply to adopt, but to invent approaches that promote trust in innovation. On security, this conference reflects Israel's global leadership, a light unto nations. Many of its cybersecurity companies have clustered in Boston and elsewhere in America, and US and Israel have close security cooperation. This conference has helped to build on that cooperation, not only with America, but Singapore, Japan, the UK, and other like-minded countries through the course of this week. And we heard this afternoon about the important work of the Global Commission on the Stability of Cyberspace. We need interconnecting networks of discussions like those. Chris Krebs spoke this morning of the central role of trust. Nadav Zafir described a trust zone. I can attest that it goes against the culture of intelligence and security agencies to share intelligence and vulnerabilities and tools, but that's what it's going to take amongst security partners. Prime Minister Netanyahu said, you have to take some risks in sharing information and intelligence. We heard today about cooperation and collective security and trust. We need to walk the talk. All of you need to be part of these networks and these conversations, pushing governments to open up and to build trust. The world as a computer can be a place of social and economic progress. But just as privacy and security have become whole of company issues, not just the province of specialists, it will take all of society in Israel, America, and other democratic countries working together to preserve networks that are open and secure and trusted. Thank you very much.